One important CSS property that we've only hinted at is the background property. Let's learn how to set the backgrounds of our page elements. Just like the font property, the background property is actually a shortened version of several individual properties. Using the individual properties is sometimes a lot easier than using the consolidated background property by itself. Let's go through each individual property and then we'll learn how to bring it all together at the end. So as you can see here, I've created just a basic page with a div in the center. And if we switch over to our text editor, you can see we just have some basic markup here, a wrapper div and our div in the center there. And there is some CSS to bootstrap the page, and here is where we'll be doing our CSS. Now first up is background color. As I've shown you in previous videos, you can use this property to change the background of a page element to a solid color. So let's try it out. Here we have a nice orange color, but I'm going to change this over to, we'll say, pink. And when I switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see what that looks like. And we'll just change it to a middle gray color. And that's what that looks like. The background property accepts a single color value, and you can use color keywords, the RGB function, or hexadecimal color, as I have done here. The next three properties deal with using images as backgrounds for your page elements. It is very common practice to use images for element backgrounds because using the image tag for everything has a tendency to lead to completely unmaintainable markup, often involving tables for layout. Using tables for layout is bad for accessibility, search engines, device support, and numerous other reasons. Tables should only be used for displaying tabular data. So let's try setting a background image. I'll type it out and then I'll explain each part. So we'll skip down to the next line here and we'll type background image and we'll type URL and we'll type out our path here. So when I switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see that the image that we've used is not only present in the browser, it also seems to be repeating. The image is only comprised of this single Firefox logo, but it's appearing several times. We'll fix that in a moment, but just ignore it for the time being. The thing I'd like you to notice right now is that this image has areas of transparency. That's because we've used a transparent PNG image or PNG image, which has an alpha layer telling the browser what parts should be opaque. Let's try changing the background color so you can see what I mean. So we'll switch back to our text editor and we'll change the background here. And when I switch back and refresh, you can see that the image is transparent and that green color is showing through. So we'll change it back to our middle gray. The background image property takes a function called URL. Again, a function is a word or set of letters followed by parentheses, and its behavior can be modified based on the values that you pass to it. One function we've already learned about is the RGB function earlier in the chapter when we learned about color. So let's switch over to the text editor. The URL function takes a single value, which is the path to an image. In this case, my image is in a folder called Images, and the images directory is in the root folder of the project files. You'll notice that this path starts out with 2 dots. That's because we're inside the CSS folder and we need to go up one directory in order to drill back down into the images folder. Messing up paths like this is a common pitfall, so anytime a background image doesn't appear in the browser after you refresh the page, it's oftentimes because the path to the image is incorrect. Now let's prevent the background from repeating. To do that, we'll use the background repeat property. So I'll just skip down to the next line here and type background repeat and type no-repeat. So when I switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see that the image is no longer repeating. The background repeat property can take several values. Let's say that instead of not repeating at all, we wanted our image to repeat along the x-axis. We could do something like this. We'll change no repeat to repeat-x, And when we switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see that it's now repeating along the x-axis. The same works for the y-axis. For now though, we don't want our image to repeat, so let's just change it back to no repeat. And there we have it. Last is the background position property. Just as always, I'm going to type out the background position and then I'll explain each part. So we'll jump down to the next line and type background-position, and we'll type center, center. And when we switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that our image is now in the center of our page element. What you'll notice here is that the image has been translated from being slightly offset to being centered. The first value here controls the x offset, and the second value controls the y offset. There are other keywords besides the word center that we can use here. For the x offset, we could say left or right, and for the y offset, we could say top or bottom. So let's try putting this image into the bottom right. So we'll just type right, and then change the y offset to bottom. And when we switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that our image is now in the bottom right corner. We can also apply very exact coordinates. The position of a background by default will be in the upper left at the position of 0, 0. Let's say that we wanted to cut off our image on the left side of our page element. We would set the x offset to a negative value to push it to the left, and set the y offset to a positive value to push it down. So let's try it out. We'll change right to negative 120 pixels to push it to the left, and we'll change bottom to 100 pixels to push it downward. So we'll switch back to the browser and refresh, and there you have it. Now, in addition to pixels, you can also use percentages to create similar effects. Now, at the beginning of this video, I explained that all the properties I've just shown you can be consolidated into a singular background property. Let's try that out and then go through each part. So we'll switch back to our text editor, and we'll delete everything that we have here, and we'll type background, and we'll give it our middle gray color, and we'll set the image to the same one that we've been using. And we don't want it to repeat, and we'll put it in the bottom left. So when I switch back, there you have it. Now, just to review, these properties should generally go in the order of background color, background image, background repeat, and then background position. With the background property, you can add quite a bit of style to your site. In the next video, we're going to learn about the border property.